I'm noticing that neither of you have brought weapons to this, as we are the three final contestants.
Okay.
So,
Do I have
okay.
His comb.
He's got a comb
trying to think of
for his beard.
what bullshit item
Yeah.
got a little flask that I got as a bachelor party gift. I guess
Is
like
that
just oh,
yourself on it?
it is.
Oh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
With a microphone and everything. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good
That's what I'm gonna
bachelor
get you
party
guys
gift.
with. I guess I've got like just randomly I've got this big thing of webbing and rope. I could lasso someone.
There you go.
That's what Galadriel gave Sam when she was dishing out the weapons to the Fellowship.
Exactly. There we go.
And you get some rope, Sam.
Everyone else gets like cool daggers and like protective gear. It's like
life-saving jewels.
yeah.
Here you go, Sam. Here's some rope.
A mythic elvish star captured in a bottle. It's like, that's some rope. I don't know.
Yeah. But firstly, I did want to thank you guys for being able to reschedule this. I know we were supposed to have this pod last week, and I had a vehicular emergency.
Yeah, how's that going?
So it's fine. I had to get 2 new tires, but you know, it's running much more smoothly now.
Funny how that works.
I probably should have paid attention to the warning signs. But these things, you know, they get away from us. But we are here today, finally, on Valentine's Day of all days. Happy Valentine's Day, fellas.
No one else I'd want to spend it with.
Exactly. The Film Sessions boys.
Yeah, what a precious movie.
I mean,
hey, this movie is full of love.
Love.
We must acknowledge that.
Movie loves love.
It really loves love. Lots of romances blooming, lots of romances dying. You get the full spectrum of a courtship in Battle Royale. But I do want to start with, because Jared, you had mentioned some of your previous experience with this movie. We'll all kind of go around and talk about when we first saw it, or if we just recently saw it. Do you want to start us off, Jared, with that?
Yeah, I mean, I am in love with this movie and have been for most of my life at this point. So I've wondered this aloud on our podcast here and there, like what movie was my introduction to global cinema? And I'm pretty sure it was Battle Royale at this point. Like I'm pretty sure this was the very first genre film or film that I seeked out myself. That, you know, wasn't American. Like I was a teenager. I think I was like 15 or something when I saw this movie. I had come across it on, I have to shout this out because I'm actually going to have this person on Concessions pretty soon, but there was a review on my favorite movie review website of the early aughts called Arrow in the Head. And the Arrow was a horror and other genre movie reviewer, and so he was very, very hip on the new stuff. So I think I saw this movie in like 2002.
Oh, very soon.
When his review came out, and I had to go to incredible lengths to see it because it didn't actually come out at all in the States until like 2010 or 2011 or something like that. So I had an original Xbox that was modded to like be able to just install your own apps on it to play like bootlegged games basically. But one of the apps I was able to throw on there was a region-free DVD player.
Oh, sick.
So I bought a online, I think probably just on Amazon, like some kind of Amazon seller. I bought a Japanese DVD of Battle Royale, like special edition, like both versions of the movie.
Do you remember how much it was?
It was, I don't remember it being a lot, like $25 maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty standard. And, you know, thankfully it had English subtitles. And I watched the ever loving shit out of this movie. Blew my mind then. I've watched it many times over the last 23 years. Yeah. And it actually, I think I like it more now than I ever have. Like watching it this past week. I just love it. I think this is a perfect movie. It's easily in my top 20 all time. Wow. And this was a movie that opened a lot of doors for me cinematically as a teenager. And I immediately went and seeked out other Japanese movies. I think within like a couple months of watching this, I also watched Audition and Ringu and The Grudge. Yeah, I love Japanese genre films, and this movie was sort of ground zero for me for this type of movie.
Yeah, I remember when I was proposing you guys the sort of list of stuff I had for this upcoming season, which now has actually changed pretty radically, but you jumped at the chance for Battle Royale. So I knew you had a special relationship to it. Dan, had you seen this before, or was this the first time?
I've seen it before. I was among the many people when Battle Royale kind of got a resurgence of notoriety because of Squid Game. So
Yeah.
I had seen Squid Game. I remember thinking like Squid Game was good. It was fine. I kind of washed over me. Like it wasn't exactly the phenomenon like I was expecting. And then everyone's like, "Oh, if you like Squid Game, like you got to go straight to the source. It's just Battle Royale." I'm like, "All right, give it a shot."
Hmm.
And I think, at least in the first watch of Battle Royale, I was a little struck by like I was not anticipating the camp. I was anticipating like, "Oh, this is gonna be gnarly shit.
Yeah.
They're gonna go no holds barred. It's gonna be like Takashi Miike, but minus any of the glee. They're like or any of the like wide popularity that Squid Game could have with those kind of sensibilities. And so I was a little taken aback at that, and I kind of just left it there. I was like, oh, that was an interesting like look into genre filmmaking in the year 2000. I kind of moved on, but rewatching it this time when I knew what I was getting and I knew like the sort of camp and almost live action cartoon
Hmm.
nature of this film, I was having a fucking blast the whole time. And it was this time that I realized that what's the guy's name? Takeshi is in this from Takeshi's Castle, which then became MXC, which actually, Jared, now that
Yeah.
you're mentioning it, like in a roundabout way, that was probably my introduction to like Japanese entertainment was
Hmm.
MXC. So it's like this man, Takeshi Kitano, is like just bringing Japanese cinema to the whole world. God bless him, you know.
Yeah, he really is kind of like baked into the culture in so many funny and interesting ways. Because I recognized him when rewatching it this time. I recognized him immediately, but I didn't know where from. And then I started
Mhm.
looking up his credits and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, this guy's all over the place, and he even has this like other name. They call him Beat Takeshi,
Mm.
which I don't know where that comes from, but the first time I saw this movie, it was my freshman year of college. A good friend of mine, he was kind of like a few years ahead of me in terms of discovering stuff like this, and it must have been 2010 because he had a DVD of it. I think we watched it on a DVD, probably on a laptop in his dorm room. It was the same friend who showed me the Human Centipede, which I immediately regretted. But he was telling me about this movie. He's like, this is a crazy, super violent movie about these kids who have to kill each other for sport. And I remember seeing it and loving it, but it had been so long since I had seen it. I basically only remembered the premise. I didn't really remember any of the actual content of the movie. So this time was almost ostensibly the first time I watched it, and it did blow my mind. I didn't realize how funny it is, and
Mm.
had basically forgotten so much of the humor and so much of the satire. But this does bring about a whole wave of other stuff that it inspires. From you just mentioned Squid Game, but I feel like the Hunger Games definitely kind of comes
Yeah.
Oh
directly
yeah.
out of this. The premise is just like eerily similar to it. I found something I think on the IMDb that mentions this thing PUBG. I don't know if you guys know what that is. I don't really
Oh
know what that
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Explain
I
to
mean,
me
just
what
the
that
whole
is
battle.
real quick.
Yeah, it's so there's a whole battle royale genre of online multiplayer shooters.
Okay.
The most famous one by far is Fortnite Battle Royale.
Okay, sure.
And it's just a genre where I want to say 20 to 60 folks will join one game, just one big map. You'll all get dropped onto like an island or something, and the last person standing is the winner. And the
Okay.
genre is known as the battle royale genre. And PUBG is a popular one, but Fortnite is easily the biggest and most famous one. And you know it spans other genres other than shooters.
Sure.
Uh, but
I mean,
but yeah,
something like even Super Smash Brothers is kind of like the kid friendly version of this, I guess, which
Yep,
I
totally.
think precedes. It might not precede the film or the
I think this
novel.
first one's 99. I
Okay,
want to
yeah,
say.
so same exact time basically.
Hmm.
It is based on a novel from 1999 by I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, Kushan Takami. Jared, you've read this book. So,
Yep,
I
sure
think
have.
before we get into like the film itself, maybe we could talk about how well of a job this does at adapting that book, or some kind of major differences, or things that you feel like it does right or wrong.
Yeah, I'd love to get that out of the way so I'm not constantly bringing up the book in the middle of our
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, sure.
So yeah, I've read the book, I've read the manga, I've read parts of the sequel manga.
Hmm.
I'm a big old Battle Royale fanboy. So Takami, he was a big Stephen King fan, and so
Okay.
he's been totally like unbothered by bringing up The Running Man and The Long Walk, two Stephen King novels that predate this by a couple decades that have a similar premise.
Yeah.
And he also brings up The Most Dangerous Game, not exactly the same, but Lord of the Flies is like all over this,
Hmm.
and he brings up Lord of the Flies. And then he talks about being inspired by pro wrestling matches. So literally, like the term battle royale is a pro wrestling term that's like a century old at this point, where it's literally like 30 guys all in the ring at once, and the last person in the ring is the winner.
Yeah.
And so like it's got this like social dynamic how where like as soon as every man is for himself, friends turn into rivals, former rivals can turn into temporary friends. There's this inherent melodrama to this type of wrestling match. And to answer your question, the book is so long and
Oh,
so
wow.
It's
not
long.
dense. It's so like overstuffed. Like every
Mm,
single character gets at least one point of view chapter where you get to know all about their internal state and who their friends are and what their home life is like. The movie is such a dramatic improvement over the novel in
okay.
that it's this tight 100 minutes or so. The director's cut is like maybe just shy of 2 hours,
Mhm.
and you don't lose anything from this like 650-page novel.
I'm looking
Wow.
up. It says it's 666 pages for a story about kids
Hail
offing
Satan.
each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
number of the beast. He must have
But
timed that to the
yeah,
exclamation point.
but the movie doesn't leave out many characters at all,
Yeah.
and it adds a couple of very interesting ones, and you get the same feeling that all these characters are like living, breathing people with lives. Like you feel like they're real kids watching
Yeah.
this movie. And in book form, that's like, okay, every single person gets a point of view chapter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In the movie, this is an action movie. Like it rarely actually stops to exposition dump beyond just like the first 10-15 minutes,
Mhm.
but you don't lose anything that the novel has. And so yeah, like I'll basically never read that novel again because the movie is better just
Yeah.
about every way.
Yeah, that's cool. Because I was really curious about that. It seems like, I mean, on the surface, the concept, I had kind of thought that maybe the novel was going to be like a kind of short, all killer, no filler, almost like a novella or something, which is sort of what
Mhm.
when you're looking at this movie on screen, kind of at least what I was imagining the source material to be.
Oh yeah, there's an actual medium in Japan that's referred to as the light novel. So it's
Hmm.
usually like this sort of almost YA focused, short and sweet, just punchy novella.
Yeah.
Like Edge of Tomorrow
Hmm.
Mhm.
was a Japanese light novel. Perfect Blue is a Japanese light novel. I agree. I was expecting this to be sort of along those lines, but no, like a chunky boy, and it takes a while to get through, and doesn't really offer anything that the movie doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I'm thinking like, you see movies or adaptations of books, or you call a film novelistic or something, or it's very clear it came from a novel. Yeah, I would not have guessed Battle Royale upon watching. Is like, oh, that was definitely pulled from literature.
Yeah. 600-page book. Yeah. Well, for the folks who haven't seen the film, who will hopefully watch it after hearing this conversation, although we are going to completely spoil this movie, obviously, to dive into it. The basic synopsis is that in a near future, the Japanese government has captured a class of ninth grade students and forces them to kill one another under the Revolutionary Battle Royale Act. And I found some fun, interesting stuff about. I mean, we should talk about that kind of the fact that it was not released in the States until 2010. When this movie came out, Japanese Parliament attempted to ban both the film and the novel, which ironically just made them both way more successful. The novel sold much higher, and by the time that the film was released, it was one of the 10 highest grossing movies in Japan of all time. The film did end up being banned in South Korea, and the reason it didn't make it over to the States right away is because I think most studios were really hesitant to touch it because this is coming right after Columbine. And so there was a lot of really extreme sensitivity around releasing a movie like this in the States. So that's why it took much longer to get here.
I was about to say, like, that might be tough to find a moment in American history where it's like, well, there was a recent shooting, so maybe we need to hold off on releasing this one.
Yeah, especially in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that just broke my heart to say. But there was some other. I had some other kind of trivia tidbits, and then we'll get into the movie. There were 6,000 roughly actors who auditioned for this movie. And that was narrowed to a list of about 800 potentials, which even then seems like just so many kids to go through. It must have been just an incredibly long casting process. I was thinking that this must, like talking about adapting the book to the film, I feel like the main challenge of a movie like this is the fact that it does juggle so many characters. That there's so many students, even just being like the kind of core 40-something students that we meet at the very beginning of the film. But they do such a good job at sorting out, who we are supposed to be following and rooting for and everything. None of the cast had stunt doubles. Everyone did their own stunts. Oh. Very impressive. And you can tell when you're especially like when you're watching the action scenes closely, these kids are really going for it. They were really throwing themselves around. And then the painting, the very macabre, gruesome painting at the end of the film was painted by Takeshi Kitano himself.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Yeah.
Whoa. And the
Renaissance man.
I'm just realizing the character is named after the real guy. Like he's actually Kitano in the film.
Yeah.
So like he's just playing himself here.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll paint your painting. But yeah, I mean that makes sense. He
does have this like when you're watching him, he does have this kind of like detached quality almost where it's almost like he just kind of walked on set and they just started shooting.
It's kind of Bill Murray-ish,
or
like a Japanese version of that.
Yeah, if you were going to do an American remake, Bill Murray would be perfect.
He would have been very good. Yeah,
or like 20 years ago, Bill Murray would have been perfect. Maybe
that's a great comp. I think that I'm sure that various studios have been trying to remake this movie for years and years. And I feel like I just read something recently that someone was starting to finalize a deal to get it remade. One of the many, many films that should never be remade for American audiences.
Yeah.
Just watch this movie.
Yeah, it's totally accessible. Like it doesn't need it. Like there's a reason this movie is already beloved amongst American audiences.
Yeah, exactly. The first thing I noted right away was the rating 15, making it unsuitable for anyone younger than 15, basically junior high aged kids, to be able to see this movie, which just feels so ironic, but also quite intentional, I think.
Yeah.
And I had the sense that like they were kind of using that as a promo gag too, where it opens up, it's like, hey everyone, this shit's gonna be super intense, so like get out if you're of a weak constitution, where you hear like these horror films where it's like, oh, we had barf bags in the movie theater because it was so nasty. Like I feel like it was in that same spirit.
Yeah, because it just announces it right away.
It's like, oh, you're in for it.
Yeah. Opens with basically a kind of news crew that's covering a scene where the lone survivor of the most recent game has emerged, and she's got this hideous smile on her face, killer smile, and then we just cut to the credits. Great way to start a movie, I think, because you get just enough to know what you're about to be in for. And then, I mean, I feel like the first kind of 5 to 10 minutes is super efficient and quick at just like getting you right into this story. You aren't really introduced to any of the kids yet, but we see one student cut the teacher, who we will see again very shortly, with a knife at school, and he's just like, I'm over this shit. He's like leaning against the wall and stuff. And then there's very quickly there's this kind of ruse of a school trip, basically a kidnapping in disguise, right? The Battle Royale Act is in full effect. It's designed as education reform. Very very funny tongue-in-cheek wording on that. And basically, like, it seems like they've just decided that these kids are they're out of control. They're too unruly. They act up in the classroom. They're running around with knives. So now we've instituted this law that is essentially capital punishment. We're going to make them kill each other for sport.
And like somehow that'll fix the problem because you might be randomly selected to murder all of your classmates. Like sometimes where that is like the main thing I was thinking about, which makes it so universal, or at least universal between Japan and the US or the West broadly, is like you get this. And it's the same thing here where it's like, oh, kids these days, they don't get it. And like, well, they're so soft and avocado toast or whatever. Like particularly in 2000, and I was like trying to match the timeline in my head. It's the same here. It's like that's kind of that shift where the older generations or the generations are going to be saying like back in my day, stuff like that. Like those are generations that, especially in Japan, like they're growing up in the rubble of World War II and like a destroyed nation. And the kids that are teenagers in about the late 90s, 2000s, they're probably the first generation to really only know comfort and really only know Japan after it bounced back. So you have this sort of divide between two realities of the culture and society that they grew up in. And of course, there's going to be a disconnect there.
Yeah, there's this clash of ideologies of, you kids, you need to stop misbehaving, and in order to teach you that lesson, we're going to make you fight to the death.
It's so like obviously just kind of this manufactured fascist mechanism to like sow additional fear and distrust among the common folk. Like, there's nothing even remotely effective to like make kids behave. Like it's just an excuse to like keep the boot on the throat, right? Well, and Japan is so, as like a country, is so averse to like owning up to its fairly recent history as authoritarians, and like famously don't really kind of teach anything about pre-World War II or even during World War II Japanese history to its kids. So like it does feel intentional that this movie can't be seen by kids because it's not at all disguising its disdain for authority and advocacy for the youth to be educated and disobedient and all that stuff that kids should be learning to do.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like whenever you see unruly kids or cohorts of people that seem antisocial or seem to not like quote unquote get with the program, it's typically, or the very conservative reaction is like, oh, there's just something wrong with them, or oh, they're just like it can't be helped, so we just gotta tamp it down. But like 9 times out of 10, it's like it's the world that this older generation created that then fostered this sense of like alienation, disconnection from the social fabric, which then makes you act out or you don't feel invested in the world that you grow up in. So you're not, and I guess people our age kind of feel that too, compared to a generation of people raised by boomers, where it's like those were people where the American project worked for them, and if you went to college, got your job with your firm handshake, you're gonna be doing just fine. You can have wife, kid, picket, or 2.5 kids picket fence. But and then there's like this tension of a group of people that have only seen financial crashes, like national tragedies, school shootings over and over, and then there's like this disaffection that goes on where Battle Royale takes that like tension and pulls it out to comical degrees so that you can kind of take a look at it a little more clearly.
Yeah, the kids. So the class of kids wake up in the classroom, and the teacher is there, and he's starting to explain to them what's going on. And the first thing I noticed right away, watching it this time especially, was the kind of anime energy in this,
Yeah.
especially the way that the two guys look. The two
older guys.
the two older guys who they call the transfer students, who we find out more about later. They're styled in such an anime kind of way, and even the editing, like a lot in this early sequence, all of these kind of like moving cameras, really quick cuts. I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be one of these, you know. Like I was pretty excited to get that kind of energy right off the bat. And he starts explaining to them what's going on through the means of this video, this corporate kind of motivational / inspirational how-to video on how to do a battle royale, which is so funny and so tongue-in-cheek. You've got this woman presenting the rules of the game, and she's wearing this crazy outfit. She's wearing like camo. She has a t-shirt that says Battle Royale on it, and all this jewelry, and she's explaining the rules in this very fun, upbeat way. There's like goofy music playing, I think, in the video. And then even on the wall behind her is the website, www.br.com.
So funny.
In case the kids wanted to, when they get off this island, Google the website.
To learn more,
learn more at battleroyale.com. I just thought that was a really fun, hilarious addition.
And then Kitano, the way he participates in the whole like call and response
it's
thing.
like very interactive. He's you can tell he's like probably done this several times, and it's at this point too that some of the kids are like whispering amongst each other, and he just point blank shoots and kills one of them for whispering, for interrupting the video, proving that this thing is real. Like this is the first moment that this really sets in for the kids. And then another kid, I think is Nobu, right? Is trying to, he's like standing up to him. They are talking about the collars from the video. Basically, the kids all have these little collars around their necks. That's kind of like a sort of doomsday countdown thing. If they do anything wrong, there's a sensor in there that's going to alert the handlers, and then their head explodes essentially. And Nobu, I think, was the kid who took the Polaroid on the bus previously, right? When they were all riding around. And you get this
kid that slashed Kitano's butt with a knife at the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Kitano goes ahead and clicks the clicker on his collar and explodes his head, and you get this beautiful shot of the Polaroid that kind of splattered with blood there at the end. Real gravity is like kind of setting in here. Basically, the kids have 3 days to survive this game. It is a fight to the death, fight to the finish. They are all kind of randomly selected to go out onto the island in whatever order. They are equipped with a bag that has like a map, a compass. So in the video, when she points to when she's like, oh, and you get food and water, and it's like a plastic bottle of water and a loaf of bread.
It's like clearly not enough for 3 days.
Yeah, like one little loaf of bread. And then you also get a weapon. And she says, some of these weapons are going to be good, some of these weapons are going to be bad. It's completely random. I didn't realize how bad the weapons would be, actually, until the next few scenes played out.
Pot lid,
yeah.
Binoculars,
a pot lid. What else? There was some other bad stuff. One of them was just like a walkie-talkie, I think, maybe.
Everybody have a map, or was
everybody gets a map with a grid, so they can mark off which sections will be the explodey sections.
Yeah, so there's another layer to this, which is that as the game progresses, there are these. They're going to start setting off bombs around certain sites on the islands to kind of push everybody together in this. It reminded me of did you guys ever play Apex Legends? Reminded me of that, where they're just like forcing you into the ring as the timer counts down. A lot of video game kind of.
Fortnite does that too.
Yeah. A lot of references to me, or at least kind of analogies that I picked out watching this.
Something I appreciate about it too. Oh, sorry. Is like just how clear they set the rules.
Yeah.
And they care about the things that matter, and they don't care about the things that don't matter. Where it's like, even when they were explaining the collar, I was like, no one gives a fuck how this collar actually works. All that matters is how this collar works for the narrative, not like, oh, what's the explosive device in the collar? Like, how does it actually operate? Like, If you're asking that question, you're watching the wrong movie.
Yeah, they're setting up a lot of things in that video of like all this stuff is going to play into major scenes
The rest of the plot
later on. Yeah, and it's just done so efficiently. Like it's short, it's sweet, and it's also hilarious and very biting. And pretty much immediately, we're just like off to the races. The kids are out on the island. They're all just like chaotically running around. Shuya he links up with this girl that he likes. Shuya is ostensibly the protagonist here, and they're periodically doing these little flashbacks, which I really like, which is kind of just showing them being, young teens doing just normal teenager stuff, normal high school kid stuff. They both like the same girl. They're bonding. And then we're just like snapped back to reality. This happens many times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Thing that I noted too when they all get off going is the Katana kicking back with the cookies that that the girl had brought.
Well, those cookies are like a symbol for her love, right? Because right at the beginning, we were introduced to the sort of triangle where it's like Noriko has a crush on Shuya, Nobu has a crush on Noriko, so like she gives Shuya the cookies, and like Nobu immediately like goes to grab one for himself, like uninvited, and so like the teacher just kicking back with her cookies is like great foreshadowing that he's like actually like a creep obsessed with her.
Yeah. It plays up right up until the very end. There's he's still eating those cookies basically throughout the whole.
Yeah, he doesn't die until he eats the last one. Yeah, Noriko's love was sustaining him. I want to double click on something you said where it's like just how efficient and just lean the writing is. And even back to that classroom scene before they actually all start to leave to go get started killing. Like we already see in that scene the vast variety of ways in which the different kids react to their situation. Like, and then throughout the movie, the thing that keeps coming back is the games never do just turn all of them into violent drones. Like, yes, they react in good ways and bad throughout, but the game really is just amplified what was already there in these kids, and they never stop being kids. They never stop having the interests of young teens. They never stop having the, kind of the shortcomings of young teens. Like none of them like, ages 20 years in order to be the victor here. Like you're always just seeing like this broad spectrum of good and bad in humanity that's dialed in already from that early classroom scene.
Yeah. On top of your point, like I could see actually an American remake showing that, like you said, aging 20 years to win is that like the more killing that would happen in an American movie, that would show this character's growth and development and like becoming something at the end. Where like you see all these kills just like they just fuck up the people who killed them. Like everyone's kind of already where they're gonna be, and it just like traumatizes everyone equally, depending on how it comes about. Like even the quote unquote accidental kills crack me up every time because it's like so contrived and it's so clearly like winking at the camera. Because like Jared, that you said like these are kids and like this is what it would look like if you were living a pretty normal life and then just snapped into a Lord of the Flies situation.
I mean, you immediately get met with the reality of like just a lot of many of these children are not cut out for this. I mean, 2 of them commit suicide like right away. They just decide to opt out completely, which
like, even though we're
really
not cut
hits
out, it's like they're almost better than it. They're too pure for this. They don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. But then there are others too who are like, yeah, game on. Like, let's fucking do this. Like Mitsuko, one of my favorite characters of the film. She is she has very much taken naturally to this. And she is deadly. She is kind of following certain students around, and kind of picking them off one by one over the course of the time, and is collecting their weapons, and she's collecting supplies and resources. It almost feels like, oh, she's done this before too. As we learn later, it's due to some extremely horrific trauma in her childhood that she is so well prepared for these deadly violent situations. But then the next day we get the first check-in. I really love the smash cut to like war marches, like the military style war music that's playing over the loudspeakers.
Yep.
And Kitano comes on and he says, "Here's the list of your dead friends in the order they died," which is the most cold-blooded shit.
Yeah, and that's Strauss's Radetzky March, just the jauntiest tune, and very much associated with Western warfare.
Yeah.
And then they have more like just kind of Western classical music that shows up. There's like the Blue Danube Waltz, which I usually just assume that whenever that tune shows up in a movie that it's more referencing 2001 than like the actual origins of it. But then you even get like some Bach and some Schubert in there, like during the sort of like softer, introspective, sort of romantic moments. So there's like this hot streak of like original score, but then they're constantly like interpolating classics in the Western canon.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're kind of pointing at like that influence. Like obviously the anime is there as well, but there does seem to be some like kind of Western like war film influence here as well.
Yeah. That like even the promotional video, the way the military was organizing themselves, like it all felt very American. Like once again, why it's so universal is because like I understand the symbols of people in green camo, like marching together and looking all serious with rifles in their hands. I understand what it looks like when you have on a screen like a very pretty woman also wearing kind of an iteration of that, but like scantily clad, being all bubbly. Like these are all very American things too that have been like kind of mapped on to the Japanese experience. And so it's interesting, Jared, that like you're saying how like a lot of the satire comes from like leaning into that tension even more, or leaning into that incongruity where it's like, yeah, we're playing like European high art or like the classics or the highest of the high of classical music for this like debased like anime free for all like teen slasher schlock movie.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah, there's almost this sense of like, even when they say in the video like, this is the correct way to play Battle Royale. This is the correct way to kill your opponent. There's still this kind of like pomp and circumstance to it. Even given like how ridiculous it is. I think it's at this point that two of the kids are up on this kind of hilltop and they're like waving a white flag, and basically this happens a few times where there are certain groups of the students who are kind of like trying to join up together. These two kids get gunned down by the Kiriyama, who I took to calling him Blondie for some reason because he's got that kind of like bleached hair, and he reminded me a bit of Clint Eastwood. And he's somehow gotten his hands on the submachine gun. I don't know if he got that in his pack. I can't. Jared,
so there's a gang of kids that immediately happens upon. They're like basically bullying him, but like not in the like context of the game where they're like gonna kill him. They're like bullying him like they're at school or whatever, and they've outnumbered him. And and there's like 7 of them, and one of them has that like Ingram, and he just immediately gets the upper hand and uses it to kill all of them at once.
Yeah. This is where we first see that obviously this guy has done this before. He's a transfer in the sense that he was transferred from another Battle Royale, not another class. And of course, we come to know that the other transfer student has a similar background. But like you were saying, the really ingenious thing about this movie that I love about it is that the attention is never taken away from the fact that these are like teenagers just trying to live teenage lives, and their motivations for doing all the things that they do are those motivations of like 15, 16-year-old kids where, you want certain things and you feel like these are the things that you have to do to get to them. There's still like all of this kind of interpersonal drama between a lot of them. Obviously all the romances, like everybody loves everybody. I was when we were texting about this movie, I was like, I cannot fucking keep track of who likes who in this goddamn movie because
I have a cute anecdote for this.
Yeah.
So I watched in high school. I watched this movie with a girl that I liked, and like a few, like I don't know, half an hour into the movie, we decided to take a tally of how many like people confess their love in this, And it literally was just a piece of paper that was like BR love tally, and was like boom, 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 and we would like reference that a lot in high
Yeah.
school, and how funny it was that like this movie is like like such a like there's such like a incongruence between all the bloodshed and all the crushing going on.
Yeah, because it is the kind of story really is this kind of almost YA style romance melodrama kind of thing that you imagine was already happening at school, right? And it's all just been kind of transplanted over to this island where now they have to fight for their lives. Something I noticed was that for the girls, it seems much more personal. They're much more vicious to each other. And I think they're quicker to react to one another and quicker to jump to assumptions. My favorite scene, which we'll come to shortly, the other transfer student, Kawada, is helping Shuya and what's the girl's name? I can't remember. Noriko.
Yeah.
He's helping them, but he's not really specifically saying why he's helping them. But it's become clear that he's done this before. And then we jump over to what's the kid's name?
Shinji, the
Shinji.
the computer. You're talking about the computer geek, right?
Yeah. So there's a computer.
Shinji.
There's a kind of group of
Yeah. So there's
students.
like he's got his like nerdy group, but Shinji and Shuya, and then we'll talk about him in a second. Hiroki.
Yeah.
Those three guys are like a tight friend group, and they don't really get to encounter each other in the movie, other than we get the flashbacks of them playing basketball and like goofing off together.
Yeah.
But,
so much basketball.
Yeah. Shinji's the hacker guy who's like also a jock.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, very cool. Only in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah, they've kind of set up shop in this old kind of like derelict building. They find a generator outside, are getting to work. They have noticed, or at least he notices when looking at his reflection, that there's a microphone inside the collar. So this is how the handlers are tracking their movements and what they're saying and what they're doing and stuff. So he's like typing up this list of supplies that his fellow students, he wants his fellow students to get. Basically, they're going to start building some bombs.
Which, of course, are readily available nearby.
Yeah, they're all
naturally.
This is what I'm saying about the video game logic of a lot of this,
Fertilizer and gasoline. I mean, the island that they're on was like clearly recently populated as like a small town. So like, anyway,
that's fair.
I'm not here to defend the logic of the film. It doesn't need me to do that for it. It's perfect.
We really don't don't have to pick nits.
Yeah, that's the fun of it. Is like almost if they just would have made a joke, it's like, isn't it so convenient? We have all this fertilizer and gasoline around. That's nice.
There was a bag of charcoal sitting outside. So they start getting set up, and then we meet Shigusa, who is for the audience when you're watching this movie, you will probably recognize her as Gogo from Kill Bill. Tarantino, upon seeing this movie, it's well known that he loves this movie. He said once that he wishes he had made this movie. Discovers her and casts her, an actress who I thought like was gonna have kind of a bigger career, and it just never really happened for some reason. But I really like her. She has a really great energy. Kind of shocked to learn that she's really only in like a scene and a half of this movie. Because as soon as we see her, she's jogging, which like just out for a jog. While
wearing her bright yellow tracksuit.
Yeah, while all this is going on, not a care in the world.
During the murder fest, like you got to get your cardio in.
Yeah, there's a kind of creepy guy following her. He's trying to get them to make out and have sex, and she doesn't want to. And he's got like a crossbow, and he ends up sort of firing at her, cuts her face, and then she brutally kills him. With a knife, stabs him directly in the pelvis and many other places. And it's Mitsuko comes upon them, and so she starts shooting at Shigusa, who in the very next scene basically dies. One of the guys, who was the third guy you said, Jaron?
So yeah, it's Hiroki. It's Shuya's other really good friend.
Yeah, he shows up and he's kind of there sort of comforting her as she dies. And she says, "You look really cool, Hiroki." And
he says, "You're the coolest girl in the world."
The coolest girl in the world.
Yeah, Hiroki's like the best dude. Like Hiroki is like the Paddington Bear of this movie.
He is very sweet. And then so the danger zones are increasing. I guess this is still day 2. Then Kawada, the transfer student, we're back with them in their little kind of bunker, and he's talking about his story a little bit. Mentions a lot of things about his dad for some reason. He was a
Weird.
doctor and also a chef.
Yep.
And then is telling his story of how he was in this game as well, with a girl who he really liked. Ostensibly, they were in love, but she turns on him, shoots him, and then he ends up having to kill her as well. And he also reveals that the other transfer guy, Kiriyama, signed up for this willingly. So he's just a cold-blooded killer looking for some carnage. At this point, basically half of the class has died or been killed. We've got 20 students to go. I love the countdown.
Oh, the scoreboard is so much fun
yeah.
every time.
Yeah. That's directly from the novel. That every single chapter ends with the scoreboard. Even if none of the kids have died in that chapter, like every single chapter ends with the, however many students to go.
Yeah, I imagine that. I would guess they also probably like open some with like the sort of daily report, right? I'm sure that factors into the.
Yeah, they definitely get every once in a while they'll get distracted by the moderator teacher guy, who's a totally different character in the book, by the way, because he's not Kitano. Kitano's Kitano, and he's just playing himself in this. But yeah, they're like that definitely ends up being a source of tension of them like waiting for the updates and reacting to learning that their friends have gotten killed, or that their friends who they thought might have gotten killed not getting killed. Definitely is a constant source of tension.
Yeah, at this point, Kiriyama, the we'll call him the very mean transfer student.
Yeah, anime guy. He's always been anime guy to me.
Yeah, anime guy. Yeah. He's very anime. He shows up at the place where Shuya and his gang are, and there's another kid outside running around. I don't remember his name, but he's got a bulletproof vest on, so he thinks he sort of gets away from Kiriyama, who then shows up on the roof with a katana, slowly unsheathes it, and jumps off the roof, fully anime style, cuts this kid down. And then the very next shot, the kid's head goes flying through the window with a grenade in his mouth. One of the best, just like, holy shit moments.
Yeah, the moment I decided that Kiriyama was the guy I was rooting for.
Yeah, the grenade in the mouth. Great gag. Almost like reminded me of like a brutal Western kind of moment. You imagine something.
Even
like
that Gatling gun was a little Django.
Yeah. I mean, that the DNA of that stuff is definitely here in a lot of scenes.
Ooh, and there'll be a Western type of movie that comes later that I'll have to remember to bring up that this movie directly influenced.
Okay, cool. Then we get to what's my favorite sequence of the movie, which is many of the girls from the various groups have gathered together at this lighthouse on the edge of the island. Basically, what had happened is Shuya gets separated from. Tell me your name again.
Noriko and Shogo.
Yeah. He gets separated from them. He wakes up in this lighthouse. He's all bandaged. And the girls are there. It's this really interesting dynamic that they seem to have, where I couldn't tell if the film specifically was kind of saying like commenting on like a woman's place in society being like to be a homemaker and
right,
because they're there and they're like cooking food for each other and stuff, but also in another very real way, it's just like they're trying to stay out of the fucking chaos,
Yeah, it's like if society was run just by women, it would be a utopia, and then as soon as there's one man there, it all goes to shit.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
it's also just like the old cliche of like teenage girls are just more mature than teenage boys. It's like, and by miles. So when presented with this, their inclination was like, how about let's like try and work together as much as we can.
Yeah. Number one, let's take shelter. Stay out, get indoors. Number two, let's have a nice meal and talk about it. And then figure out, and they also have a plan to meet up with computer guy and his guys on the other side of the island, right? I think that's who they're gonna go meet. Or is
okay, so Hiroki.
Oh no, that's where Shuya is trying to go.
Again, everyone's best bud, Hiroki.
Okay.
He found Shuya washed up ashore with a bullet wound and carried him on his back to the lighthouse before mysteriously disappearing for his own on his own little private quest that we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But Shuya is trying to link up with his old buddy Shinji.
That's right.
Because he just knows that he's gonna do some hacker shit.
Yeah. But one of the girls here in the lighthouse, in a previous scene, Shuya accidentally kills another student, Oki, with a hatchet in the head. They basically, it's not clear from whose point of view what exactly happened. According to him, it was a total accident. They rolled down a hill together, and then one of the kids stood up and he had a hatchet in his head. This girl saw that on the side, and she's been brewing up this poison, or she finds a poison, basically, and poisons the food that they're going to ostensibly feed to Shuya. But another girl comes running in and takes a taste of it first and immediately vomits blood and dies.
Yep.
And then it's this amazing, tense standoff between all the girls in the kitchen.
Yep.
They all kind of start accusing each other. One of them is kind of trying to take the lead and say, everybody just chill out, calm down. No one did anything. The other one, the girl with the glasses, she's the most freaked out right away. She grabs a gun and is just pointing it at all of them. The other one who made the food is getting pissed, and she's like, "Fuck you!" Like it just spirals into chaos to the point that by the middle of the scene, there are multiple guns, and they just all start fucking shooting at each other in this little kitchen. I love this scene because it perfectly displays the kind of like high school kid logic dynamic of like how quickly they can turn on each other in a situation like this.